Behind the loose baseboard, 3 envelopes. One said, twins, $41,000. Celestine Monroe counted it by phone light at 3 in the morning, 31 years old, black, beautiful, and invisible in her own family. By day, she wore a maid's uniform in a Korean mansion, black dress and white apron, scrubbing floors that cost more than her life. By night, she saved for the children she swore she would have, 3 years hidden in a seam of the wall. Her mother knocked and asked for 300 more. There was always another emergency. There was always another brother, one payment from a better life. Then her sister found the wall. The man who owned that mansion was Kwon Tae-sung. They called him the Quiet One. Charcoal suit, silver watch, a black serpent tattooed up the side of his neck. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. And he was standing a few feet away when the phone rang on speaker, when a voice said 4 words that split Celestine's world in 2. Your twins are mine now. He heard every word, and what he decided to do about it, no one in that family saw coming. Before starting the story, comment down below where you are watching from and what time it is there. If stories of karma, love, and hidden truths move you, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a member and help our channel. Celestine pried the loose baseboard away from the wall with the flat of a butter knife, working by the blue glow of her phone screen. 3 in the morning, the house slept around her, thin walls carrying every breath, and she had learned to move without weight. The board came free with a soft click she had sanded down herself, months ago, so it would never squeal. Behind it, in the hollow between the studs, the envelopes waited. She counted with 2 fingers, lips moving without sound. 60,000, give or take, folded flat and rubber-banded by category, rent buffer, books, bus card, and the fat one, the one she touched last, always last. The seal on it was worn soft where her thumb had pressed 100 nights. On the front, in her own block letters, fertilization, twins, $41,000 inside. She did not open it. She only pressed once, felt the thickness, and breathed. 3 years lived in that seam of the wall. Every skipped lunch, every walk home to save the bus fare, every birthday she claimed to have forgotten so no one would expect a dinner out. She had watched other women her age post pictures of nurseries, and she had said nothing, and gone back to the doubles. The board hid all of it. The board was the only thing in the house that had never once betrayed her. The floorboard in the hall creaked. Celestine's hand shot to kill the phone light. She sat in the dark against the wall, envelope in her lap, and listened to her mother's slippers shuffle toward the kitchen. A tap ran. A cup filled. The slippers shuffled back. A door. Only then did she slide the envelopes home and fit the board back into its groove, thumbing it flush until the seam vanished. She was on her knees in the dark when the knuckles came against her own door. Celestine, Gloria's voice, soft as syrup. You awake, baby? She was on her feet before the second knock. She had the lamp on and a textbook open across her bed by the time the door swung in, so that her mother would see a daughter studying and not a daughter kneeling at a wall. Gloria filled the doorway in her floral house dress, the beige shawl pulled around her shoulders, the pearl necklace she wore even to sleep. Her glasses caught the lamplight. Behind them, the eyes were already wet. I hate to do this to you, Gloria said. I purely hate it. Do what, Mama? Andre's car. Gloria pressed a hand to her chest. They're gonna tow it Monday, if the note don't get paid. 300. That boy will lose his job, Celestine. He can't get to the warehouse without that car. Celestine looked at the textbook without seeing it. Anatomy of the lower limb. She had a quiz Friday she had not studied for. Andre doesn't have a job at a warehouse, she said. He's about to. That's the whole point. Gloria's voice climbed a half step. You'd deny him the start of something? Your own brother? Celestine kept her eyes on the diagram of muscle and bone. She had heard this shape of sentence her whole life. There was always a start of something, always a brother or a sister or a cousin, one payment away from the good version of their life, and the payment was always hers. She had stopped believing in the warehouse job the way she had stopped believing in the medicine and the school registration and the deposit on the apartment that Andre was going to get, any day, any month now. How much did the tow company say? She asked. 300, cash, by Monday. Gloria's thumb worried the pearls at her throat. You know I wouldn't ask if there was another way. I get my check on the 3rd. I'd pay you back. There was never another way. And the check on the 3rd went to church and lottery and Talia's nails, and no one had ever paid her back $1 in her life. Celestine knew this the way she knew her own name. $300. Celestine had counted it not 10 minutes ago. She knew exactly where it sat, which band held it, how the loss would ripple into next month. I gave you 200 on the 1st, she said, for Talia's medicine. And she's grateful. We're all grateful. Gloria stepped in, sat on the edge of the bed, and the mattress sighed. She put her marked hand over Celestine's, warm, heavy. That's what family does, baby. We hold each other up. You're the strong one. God made you the strong one for a reason. The reason, Celestine thought, was that she was the only one who worked. She did not say it. She pulled the envelope of small bills from the shoebox in her closet, the decoy box, the one she let them believe was everything, and counted 300 into her mother's open palm. Gloria's fingers closed before the last bill landed. You're a blessing, Gloria said, standing. You know that? A pure blessing. Good night, Mama. At the door, Gloria paused. Her eyes drifted, just once, to the wall behind the dresser, the long blank stretch of baseboard, and Celestine's stomach dropped through the floor. Then the eyes moved on. The door clicked shut. The slippers shuffled away. Celestine sat very still until she heard her mother's bed accept her weight. Then she turned off the lamp and lay in the dark with her heart going like a fist on a door, and she did the math again. 59,700 now. She would make the 300 back in a week of doubles. She always did. She kept her eyes off the wall. The alarm went at 5:40. Celestine was already awake. She dressed in the bathroom to keep from waking the house. The black dress that fell below the knee, the white apron she ironed stiff every Sunday night, the flat black shoes worn thin at the heel. In the mirror, she pinned back the wide caramel gold pieces that framed her face, twisting the mass of dark hair into something an employer would call tidy. She kept it light, a little gloss. The rest of her stayed hers. Andre was on the couch when she passed the front room, still in yesterday's gray hoodie, one white sneaker on and one off, asleep with his mouth open and the television murmuring blue over his face. The car, with the note due Monday, sat outside under a tarp. It had not run in 5 months. Celestine had known that for 5 months. She stepped past him without a sound. The kitchen held the ghost of last night's cooking and the actual body of her sister, sprawled across 2 chairs in a wine-colored top, phone glowing an inch from her face. You're up early, Talia said, not looking. I'm always up early. Bougie job. Talia's acrylics clicked against the screen. Cleaning some Korean man's palace. You know what they say about those people. Celestine filled a thermos with coffee and screwed the lid tight. I know they pay on time. Ma said you gave her the 300. I did. Talia looked up then. Something moved behind her small eyes, quick as a fish under ice, and was gone. Must be nice, she said, having it to give. Celestine put the thermos in her bag and let the silence stand. At the door, she stopped. The medicine working? What medicine? The 200. On the first. For your medicine. Talia's thumb never stopped moving. Oh, yeah. Working great. Celestine stepped out into the gray morning and pulled the door shut behind her, softly, the way she did everything in that house. The bus took 40 minutes across the city, from the block where the houses leaned on each other to the long, clean streets where they stood far apart behind gates. Celestine had the ride memorized. She used it to study. The caramel sweater came out of her bag first. She pulled it on over the uniform against the cold, then the thin-framed reading glasses, then the anatomy text with its spine cracked white from folding. Nursing prerequisites. 2 years of them now, one course at a time, paid for one course at a time, because that was the only way it ever got paid. She read the same paragraph 3 times. The muscles of the anterior compartment, tibialis anterior, extensor digitorum longus. She whispered them like a rosary, while the city thinned outside the window. A woman across the aisle watched her a moment, then looked away. The clinic had a number she kept in her phone, under a name that meant nothing, dentist, so that no one who scrolled her messages would understand. She had called it twice. The second time, a nurse with a kind, flat voice had walked her through the cost, the timeline, the way the first round worked, and the odds if the first round failed. Twin embryos, the woman had explained, gave her the best chance at her age, and the best chance was the whole reason Celestine had let the envelope grow so fat before she moved. She had done the arithmetic on the back of a receipt. She was there. After 3 years, she was finally exactly there. She had told no one, not her mother, who would call it selfish, not Talia, who would call it worse. The twins were the one thing in her life that belonged to no one but her, and she guarded them the way she guarded the money, behind a false wall, in the dark, where the family could not get their hands on it. Celestine had a plan, and the plan had a shape. Finish the prereqs. Sit the entrance exam in spring, 2 years of nursing school after that, and at the end of it a license, a real salary, a badge with her name on it, and the twins. Always, underneath everything, the twins. 31 years old, and the doctor's words still sat in her like a stone. Not impossible, but not forever. The windows closing. If you want this, don't wait on someone to hand it to you. So she hadn't waited. She had counted. $41,000 behind a baseboard, dollar on dollar, double shift on double shift, 3 years of it. Enough now for the first round. Enough to walk into a clinic and stop being the strong one who held everyone up, and become, for once, someone building something that was hers. The plan asked one thing of her above all, that the money stay untouched until the appointment, not a dollar borrowed against, not a round given to the church, the car, the medicine, the endless emergencies. She had held that line for 3 years, while the family bled her decoy box dry, and she would hold it 3 more weeks. That was all it was now. 3 weeks. She closed the book at her stop. Ack. The gate opened before she reached the intercom. It always did now. The guard knew her by the walk. The drive curved through trees that someone else was paid to keep, past a garage longer than her mother's whole house, up to the front of a home that did not look like a home, so much as an idea of one. Glass and pale stone, and a silence you could hear. Kwan Taesong's mansion. She had worked here 8 months and spoken to the man perhaps 11 times. He was rarely there. When he was, he moved through the rooms like weather, and the other staff went quiet and quick around him, and Celestine had learned to read a room by how the maids held their shoulders. Mrs. O, the housekeeper, met her at the service door with a list. Upstairs first today, the study, the guest wing, he has people coming. Yes, ma'am. And the kitchen after. Full. He may take a call in there, so be finished by 2. Celestine tied her apron and went up. She cleaned the way she did everything, thoroughly, invisibly, leaving no trace of herself but the shine. She ran a cloth along the banister and the glass and the long, cold surfaces, and she thought about the quiz Friday, and the 300 she owed her own savings now, and whether the clinic would take a deposit to hold the appointment. She was polishing the tall windows of the guest wing when she saw him. Down in the courtyard, alone, a man stood with his back to the house. Charcoal suit, no tie, the collar of a black shirt open at the throat. Even from 3 floors up she could see the mark of it, the dark shape that climbed the left side of his neck and vanished behind his ear. He was looking at nothing. A phone sat in his hand, unused. He stood so still that a bird landed on the stone a few feet from him, and he let it. Celestine had heard the things people said, Talia's version, the neighbor's version, the version whispered in the service kitchen when Mrs. O stepped out. Korean mafia, the quiet one, money that came from places you didn't ask about. She couldn't say what was true. She knew he paid on time and in full, and that in 8 months, no one under his roof had ever raised a hand or a voice to her, which was more than she could say for the house she woke up in. She had seen the man's wife once, she thought, or someone she took for a wife, a year ago, before her time. The staff still spoke of a woman who had left. Now there was only him, and the quiet, and the rooms kept ready for guests who came in dark cars and did not stay for dinner. Mrs. O had one rule above all others. You clean, you do not look, you do not remember faces. Celestine had never had trouble with that rule. She had spent her whole life being the one nobody looked at. She knew how to give that mercy back. She went back to the glass. A younger maid, Rosa, passed her in the hall with an armload of pressed linen and stopped. "You hear? He's got the lawyer coming, the thin one with the glasses." Rosa lowered her voice. "Han, when Han comes, something's happening, money or worse." "Not my business," Celestine said. "Nothing's your business till it is." Rosa shifted the linen. "Finish the guest wing before they get here. He doesn't like the staff around when he talks." Celestine nodded and worked faster. By noon she was in the kitchen, on her knees again, this time scrubbing the seam where the great steel island met the floor. Her phone buzzed in her apron pocket. She ignored it. It buzzed again. She wiped her hands and looked. "Mama." Then, before she could set it down, Talia. Then Mama again. 3 calls in 90 seconds. Something cold moved up the back of her neck. Her family called when they wanted money, and they wanted money in daylight, by text, in small, polite pleadings. They did not call 3 times in a row. She looked at the 3 names stacked on the screen and felt the day tilt under her. A voice in the back of her mind, the one she had trained for years to stay quiet, said, "Go home. Something is wrong at home." But home was always wrong in small, predictable ways, and she had a floor to finish and a house to be gone from by 2, so she told the voice it was nothing and half believed the lie. She stood, thumb hovering over the screen, the wet cloth still in her other hand. Somewhere in the vast, quiet house, a door opened and did not close. Celestine did not know yet that the man from the courtyard had come inside for water, that he was near enough to hear, that the next voice out of her phone would carry across the stone floor to a stranger's ear. She only knew her hands had gone cold, and her sister had called 3 times. She pressed the phone to her ear. "Talia, what happened?" And her sister began, very slowly, to laugh. The laugh went on too long to be about anything small. Celestine stayed on her knees, the wet brush still in her free hand, gray water pooling around the bristles. She set the brush down on the tile so it wouldn't drip on her apron. "Talia, talk." "I'm just so happy for you," Talia said. Her voice had a smile pressed into it. "I really am. You always were the smart one. Saving, planning, little bee." Something in the way she said saving made Celestine's stomach fold. She pressed her free hand flat to the floor to steady herself. "Where's Mama?" "Right here. She's fine." "Everybody's fine." A pause. Then brighter. "You're on speaker, by the way." Andre wanted to hear. Celestine heard the kitchen at home behind the words. The bad hinge on the cabinet under the sink. A chair leg scraping. Andre's small cough that he did when he was nervous and pretending not to be. "Why?" "Because we found something," Talia said. "Behind the baseboard. The one by the dresser. The one you sanded so it wouldn't squeak." The floor of the mansion kitchen tilted. It didn't move. Celestine's sense of it moved. She got one knee up under her without deciding to. "Talia, you sanded it real good, Cece. Real careful. Nobody would have known, except Mama saw you go behind there one time, and she told me. And I thought, no, not our Cece. Our Cece keeps it all in that little shoebox like a child." But I looked anyway. Celestine was standing now. She didn't remember choosing to. Her back found the edge of the counter and pressed into it. "You put your hands in my wall." "I put my hands in a wall in my mother's house," Talia said. "Different thing." Down the hall, past the swinging door, a cabinet opened somewhere in the quiet house, and a glass touched marble. Celestine didn't register it. Her whole body had gone to the phone. "How much did you take?" "Don't be like that." "How much, Talia?" "All of it. Light, easy, like reading a grocery list. The rent stack, the book stack, the little bus one, and the fat envelope. A beat, delivered like a gift. The one that says fertilization, twins." The word twins came out of the phone and landed somewhere under Celestine's ribs and stayed there. A stone dropped into a well that had no bottom. She heard her own breath leave her. She didn't hear it come back. "That's $41,000. I know exactly how much it is. I counted it twice. A rustle, paper against paper, close to the mic, on purpose. It's a lot of money to have behind a board while your family eats ramen. Cece, you let Mama cry about Andre's car. You let me beg for $200 for my medicine. $200. And you had $41,000 in the wall. That money is for a baby." "Yeah." The smile came all the way back into the voice. "For a baby. That's the funny part." Celestine's free hand had found the little chain at her throat and closed around it. "Say what you're saying. You're 31, sweetie. Same as me, almost. And you know what the doctor told me. The medicine I take. The $200 a month you thought was for headaches." Talia let it hang. "I've been trying for 3 years too, Cece. Only difference is I told the truth about it and you hid yours in the wall. You have a husband. Who can't give me one." "Yeah, thanks for that." The edge came up hard and then smoothed itself flat again. "So here's what happened this morning, since Andre wants to hear, and Mama's right here. I called the clinic, your clinic, the one you saved in your phone as dentist, which, cute. I gave them a name and a deposit. 41,000 covers a full round with the twin embryos. The good round, the one you wanted." Celestine's mouth opened. Nothing came out for a second. When it did, it was very quiet. "You used my money to book yourself." "I used a family loan," Talia said, "to start my family. And before you scream, I want you to hear the whole thing, okay? Because you're the one always saying, 'Be practical. Be practical, Cece.'" "Talia, your twins are mine now." She said it slow. She said it clean. She had clearly practiced how it would sound. "That's it. That's the whole call. Your twins are mine now." Something changed in the kitchen behind her. Andre said her name. Talia. Low, off mic. Then Gloria's voice. Closer. Warm as a blanket over a knife. "Celestine, baby, don't be dramatic. It stays in the family. That's the beautiful part." Celestine had gone completely still against the counter. The chain was cutting a thin line into her palm. She made herself loosen her hand. "Put Mama on." "You're on speaker, I told you." Put the phone to Mama's mouth. A shuffle, then Gloria, full in the receiver, that soft church voice she used on deacons and creditors. "I'm here, baby. You saw me open the wall." A pause too long to be innocent. "I saw my daughter needing help," Gloria said, "and my other daughter sitting on a fortune. You saw the compartment. I don't know what you're talking about." That word, compartment. A little laugh. "You always did have big words." Celestine closed her eyes. When she opened them, the kitchen of the mansion was too bright, every surface she had cleaned this morning throwing the light back at her. "You told Talia where to look." "I told Talia her sister loved her," Gloria said, "and that love has always meant something in this house." $41,000, Mama. "And a grandbaby out of it," Gloria said, and her voice actually lifted, actually filled with something like joy. And that was the part that took Celestine's knees out from under her, more than the number had. 2 grandbabies, God willing. You should be happy. You're gonna be an auntie. The word auntie went through her like cold water. "Give the phone back to Talia." Russell. Talia, chewing something now. "Yeah." "You call the clinic back. Today? You unbook it. You bring me my envelope." "Can't." "You can. The deposit's non-refundable, Cece. Read a website sometime." A wet click of the tongue. "And the rest is safe. It's real safe. You'll never find where." So here's the practical part. Since you love practical, you keep quiet. You keep working for your Korean man. You keep being the responsible one. And in 9 months you get to hold a baby that's basically half yours anyway, because it's family, because it's my baby with your money, and everybody wins. Or you make a big ugly noise about it, and Mama has a stroke from the stress, and Andre tells everybody at church you tried to have Talia arrested over a family loan, and you still don't get the money back. You just lose all of us on top of it. A pause, gentle, almost kind. "You don't have anybody but us, Cece. You never did. Think about that before you do something you can't take back." Andre's voice came in from somewhere near the stove, small and quick, the cough riding under it. "Tell her it's not that deep, Tal. Cece knows it's not that deep." "It's not that deep," Talia repeated, obedient, like a child passing a note. "It's $41,000, Celestine said. "It's the deepest thing there is. See? That's the drama I'm talking about." A sigh, long-suffering, performed. "It's a number. You act like it's a person." "It is a person," Celestine thought. "It's 2, but she didn't say that, because the second she said it out loud to Talia, it would stop being hers and become something Talia got to hold too, and Talia had already put her hands in enough of her. Celestine looked at the water she'd been scrubbing. It had gone still and gray, a flat mirror on the floor, and her own shape hung upside down in it. "You put your hands in my wall," she said again, very slow this time, not a question, almost to herself. "Are you crying? Don't cry. You'll make me cry." "I'm not crying." She wasn't. Her eyes were dry and wide and fixed on nothing. Something behind them had gone very quiet and very cold, the way a house goes quiet right before the weather turns. "Good," Talia said. "So we understand each other. I understand you. That's my girl. That's the smart one." The chewing again. "Now go finish your floors. And Cece, don't call back for a day or 2. Mama's tired. All this excitement." The line went dead before Celestine could answer. She stood there holding the phone against her ear long after the call had ended, listening to nothing, because the nothing was easier than the room. Her arm didn't come down. It was Rosa's voice from the doorway that finally moved her. "Celestine, you okay, honey?" She turned the phone face down on the counter. She picked up the wet brush. She got back down on her knees on the tile, because her knees were already going, and it was better to choose the floor than to be taken there. "I'm fine," she said. Her voice came out level. That was the thing that scared her. Later, when she thought about it, how level it came out. Rosa didn't move from the doorway. "You don't look fine. Family stuff." Rosa knew about family stuff. She didn't push. "Mrs. O wants the study done before the lawyer gets here. I told her you were almost through in here. 10 minutes. I'll tell her 15. Rosa's footsteps went away. Celestine put the brush to the tile and pushed it forward and pulled it back. Forward and back. The water didn't need her. The floor was already clean. She scrubbed a clean floor because the motion was the only thing holding the rest of her in one piece. And she did the math while she scrubbed, because math was the one thing that had never lied to her. 3 years. Skipped lunches counted in the hundreds. Double shifts she'd taken with a smile, so Mrs. O would think her cheerful. The birthdays she'd let slide past, telling everyone she'd forgotten, when she had never once forgotten. When she had sat on the bus on her own birthday, doing anatomy flashcards because a study guide was free and a cake was not. $41,000. The window the doctor had drawn for her with 2 fingers held close together. Closing. 3 weeks. She had been 3 weeks away. The brush stopped moving. Not gone, she told herself. Money is money. Money can be got back. She started listing what could be done, the way she listed everything, in order, because a list was a rope and she needed a rope. Bank. Did the transfer leave a trail? The clinic. Would they talk to her if she called? The real her. The one whose face wasn't on any deposit. A lawyer. She didn't have money for a lawyer now. She had a shoebox with $59,700 in it that the whole family thought was her savings, and that was the joke, wasn't it? That was the joke. They'd taken the real thing and left her holding the decoy she'd built to protect it. She pressed the heel of her hand against her mouth for exactly 1 breath. Then she took it away. She'd finished the kitchen and was wringing the cloth over the bucket when she felt the room change. Not a sound exactly, a weight. The particular pressure of being looked at. Kwan Taesong stood just inside the doorway that led to the hall, a glass of water in his hand, untouched. He was not supposed to be there. In 8 months she had never once seen him in the kitchen. His people brought him things. He did not come to the room where the help was on their knees. He had a way of standing that made a doorway look like his idea. Charcoal, no tie, collar open. The dark shape at the side of his neck showed where the collar fell away. He held the glass the way a man holds something he has forgotten he is holding. Celestine got to her feet fast, wiped her hands on her apron. "Mr. Kwan, I'm sorry. I'll be out of your..." How much did she take? The question landed flat in the middle of the room. No greeting, no softening. His English was precise and unhurried, each word set down like a coin on a counter. Heat climbed Celestine's neck. He had heard. Of course he had heard. The house was silent, and she had been on speaker, and he had been standing there with a glass of water for God knew how long, and now he knew a thing about her that no one who signed her checks was ever supposed to know. "It's a family matter, sir. It won't affect my work." "That is not what I asked." She met his eyes, because looking away felt worse. His face gave her nothing, not pity. She would have quit on the spot for pity. Not curiosity either, something more level than both, a stillness that was doing arithmetic of its own behind it. $41,000, she said, because there seemed no point now in pretending he had heard less than he'd heard. "It was mine. It's not anymore." He turned the glass a quarter turn in his fingers and did not drink from it. "The clinic," he said. "She used your name?" "A name, a deposit." Celestine's chin came up. I'd rather not discuss it, Mr. Kwan. With respect, you don't pay me to bleed my family in your kitchen. The corner of his mouth moved. Not a smile. Acknowledgement, maybe, of the spine in it. No, he agreed. I don't. He looked at her a moment longer. She had the strange sense of being read, the way she read her flashcards, front and back, the fact and the thing behind the fact. You did not cry, he said. It wasn't a question, and it wasn't quite a compliment. It was an observation, filed somewhere. Crying doesn't get it back. No. He set the untouched glass down on the counter she had just cleaned, precisely, so it made almost no sound. It doesn't. Footsteps came down the hall then, unhurried, a leather case knocking softly against a thigh. A thin man in a gray suit appeared at Taesong's shoulder, glasses catching the light, a face arranged into perfect neutrality. His eyes went once around the kitchen, over Celestine, over the bucket, over the face-down phone on the counter, and took an inventory she felt more than saw. You wanted me early, Han Ji-woo said in Korean. Wait for me in the study, Taesong answered, in Korean, not looking away from Celestine. Han inclined his head and withdrew, and the soft knock of the case receded down the hall. Taesong stayed where he was 1 second more. Then he stepped back toward the door and paused at the threshold the way he'd paused in the courtyard that morning, a man deciding the exact length of a silence. Finish the study when you're able, he said, in English again, mild. There's no hurry today. There is always a hurry, she almost said. Someone is always in a hurry, and it is always me, but she held it. Yes, Mr. Kwan. He left. The kitchen was hers again, and the bucket, and the clean floor, and the glass of water he had carried all the way in and set down without drinking, sweating a slow ring onto the counter beside her phone. Celestine looked at the phone for a long moment. Then she picked up the glass, wiped the ring away with her cloth, poured the water into the sink, and set the empty glass in the rack to dry, because that was her job, and her hands still worked, and the only thing left standing in her that she trusted was the part that knew how to keep working while the ground came apart. She untied her apron, retied it tighter, and went to do the study. She had the study half done when the door opened without a knock. Taesong stood in the frame with his coat over one arm. Behind him, Han waited in the hall, pasta already in hand, saying nothing. Celestine straightened from the shelf she was dusting and reached for the cloth she'd tucked into her waistband, ready to explain the delay. Leave that, Taesong said. Mrs. O wanted it before. Mrs. O works for me. He looked at the shelf, then at her. Where does your family live? The cloth stayed in her hand. Why? You're going home. I'm driving you. He said it the way another man might read a street sign. You'll want witnesses to whatever happens next, and you don't have any. Celestine set the cloth on the edge of the desk. 8 months in this house, and she had learned to read the weather of him. The stillness, the short questions, the way staff went quiet when he crossed a room. She had never once been the thing he crossed a room toward. I don't need a ride, she said. I need to finish my shift. Your shift is finished. He turned to Han and said 3 words in Korean. Han nodded and left. Then, to her, in English. The car's out front. You can walk to it, or I can wait. I'm not going to make you do either. She thought about the bus, 40 minutes of it, the anatomy book she wouldn't be able to read. She thought about walking into that house alone, into Talia's smile, into Gloria's pearls, and having no one at her back who wasn't paid to be against her. My apron, she said. Bring it. Take it off in the car if you want. The car was black and low and smelled of nothing. Han drove. Taesong sat in front, half-turned, so that his voice reached the back seat without effort. Tell me the address, he said. She gave it, He didn't repeat it to Han. Han was already turning. "You know the way," she said. "He looked it up while you were dusting." Taesong's eyes stayed on the windshield. "How many of them will be there?" 3, maybe 4. She counted on the inside. "My mother, my sister, my brother, my sister's husband if he's off work." The husband, does he know? Know what? Where the money came from? She hadn't thought about Dominic in hours. She thought about him now. The tired eyes, the polo shirt, the way he called her Sel, like it cost him nothing. "No," she said. "I don't think he knows anything." Taesong made a small sound, not quite a word. Han's eyes flicked to the mirror once and away. "When we get there," Taesong said, "I don't speak. I stand where I can see the room. You do what you came to do. If you want to leave, we leave. If you want to stay, we stay." He paused. "Nobody in that house decides anything about you today except you." Celestine looked at the back of his head, the black hair combed with a precision that never slipped. "Why are you doing this?" "Because I was in the kitchen," he said, "and you didn't cry." She had no answer for that. The city thinned into her neighborhood, the check-cashing place, the church with the plywood sign, the corner where the bus let her off every night at 10 past 10. The house came up on the left, narrow, the Lona-covered car still dead in the drive. Han parked behind it. Taesong got out first and opened her door before she'd found the handle. The front room smelled of the candle Gloria burned when she wanted the house to seem holy. Talia was on the couch with her feet up, thumbs moving across her phone. Andre leaned in the kitchen doorway with a bowl of cereal at 4 in the afternoon. Gloria came out of the back with a dish towel and a smile already built. "Baby," Gloria said, "you're home early." Then she saw the men behind Celestine, and the smile changed shape without leaving her face. "Oh, you brought company." Talia's thumbs stopped. She looked up, took in the suit, the tattoo climbing the side of Taesong's neck, Han's briefcase, and sat up straight. "Cel, who's this?" Celestine didn't answer her sister. She looked at her mother. "You saw the floor," she said, "before Talia ever touched it. You saw where I kept it, and you told her." Gloria pressed the towel to her chest. "Now who's been filling your head? On the phone, you said you saw your daughter sitting on a fortune." Celestine's voice stayed level. It was the levelness that made Andre stop chewing. "You watched me pull that board. Months ago, you waited. I watched you turn your back on your own blood is what I watched." Gloria's chin came up. The sweetness folded away, and something older showed underneath. "Talia has a husband and no baby. You have nothing and no husband. God puts the coin where it's needed." The room was quiet. Behind Celestine, Taesong stood exactly where he'd said he would, near the wall, hands loose, watching. He was not part of it. He was a witness, and having him there made the words land differently, because now the words had somewhere to echo. Talia stood. "You come in here with some Korean man like you're better than us." She stepped around the coffee table. "That money's already spent, Cel. The deposit's in. In 9 months you get a niece. 2 nieces. That's what you get to keep. You called my clinic. I gave a name. Deposit's not refundable, so unless you want to burn 41 grand for spite." "Whose name?" Something crossed Talia's face. Fast. Gone. "Mine," she said. "I gave mine. You gave a name so they'd take the money without a match." Celestine watched her sister's mouth. "That's not how a clinic works. You know that. You signed something." "I didn't sign your name," Talia said, too quickly. Andre set his bowl on the counter with a click. He wiped his mouth with the back of his hand and looked at the front door like he was measuring the distance to it. "Andre," Celestine said, without turning to him, "you drove it, didn't you?" "Drove what?" His voice cracked on the second word. "The money." Somebody carried $41,000 from that floor to that clinic. Talia doesn't take the bus. She kept her eyes on her sister. You got paid to move it. How much? That's crazy, Andre said. He said it to the room, to Gloria, to anyone. Nobody backed him. Gloria's jaw worked and produced nothing. In the silence, his own denial hung there and rotted. Taesong moved for the first time. One step, no more. Enough to bring him into the edge of Talia's vision. He still didn't speak. He looked at her the way a man looks at a number he's already decided to check. Talia's hand went to her hip and stayed there, empty. I came for one thing, Celestine said. She was looking at all of them now. The couch, the doorway, the candle. I came to tell you to your faces, so nobody can say I snuck out. I'm done. I'm not the box you open when you're short. Not anymore. Gloria laughed, thin. And where will you go? You clean houses. I clean this man's house. Celestine's chin didn't move. And he offered me a room, so I'll take the room, and I'll take my books, and I'll take what's left in the shoebox, and none of you will see another dollar of it. The word shoebox did it. Andre's head turned toward the back of the house before he could stop it. Gloria's eyes followed his. Talia said, "What shoebox?" in a voice that already knew. Celestine was already walking to the room she'd slept in for 6 years. It took 4 minutes. The anatomy book, the second book, the folder of transcripts, 2 changes of clothes, the caramel sweater, the reading glasses. The shoebox from the top of the closet, the decoy they'd been feeding on for 3 years, still fat, still theirs in their minds, and never theirs at all. She put it in the bottom of the duffel and the clothes on top. When she came back out, Gloria was standing between her and the door. You walk out with that boy, Gloria said, low. You don't come back when it goes wrong. And it goes wrong, Celestine. Men like that don't give rooms for free. For one breath, the words found the place they were aimed at. Celestine had thought it herself in the car. Nothing is free. Everything is a hook. She looked past her mother to Taesong, who had heard every word and whose face gave back nothing. No promise, no pitch. You'd know about hooks, Celestine said. You baited me for 31 years. She stepped around her mother. Taesong opened the door. Talia's voice chased her onto the porch. You'll be crawling back by Christmas. And then Han pulled it shut, gently, the way you close a door on a room you're done with. In the car, nobody spoke until the church slid past the window. The name on the deposit, Taesong said. It matters. I know. Han will find out what she signed. He said it as fact, not offer. Clinics keep records. Deposits leave a trail. If she put your name on a form, that form exists. Celestine watched her old street disappear. And then what? Then you'll know what you're standing on. He turned enough to look at her. I don't do anything with it. You do. I'm telling you what's possible, not what you'll choose. She held the duffel on her lap, the shoebox a hard rectangle under her hands. Let's get one thing straight, she said. I'm not a project. I'm not a woman you save so you can feel like a good man in a bad business. No, he agreed. I don't want your money. You'll have a room. That's a wall and a lock, not money. Rooms have rent. This one doesn't. He said it flatly, the way he'd said everything, and it was the flatness that made her look at him. No rent, no debt. I'm not lending you anything. You'll spend the next 3 years paying back with your gratitude. You clean my house. I pay you for it. That's the whole account. The room sits outside of it. She turned the words over, hunting for the string. Nothing's free. The room's not free. I'm choosing to spend it. That's different from you owing it. He looked forward again. The day you feel you owe me, you'll start deciding things to keep me happy, instead of deciding them because they're right. I've watched people do that their whole lives. I don't want it in my house. Han's eyes met hers in the mirror. and for the first time the lawyer spoke, quiet and dry. He means it. It's the only thing about him that never changes. Celestine sat with the shoebox and the duffel and the strange, clean air of the car. Somewhere behind her, her mother was already telling the neighbors a version where Celestine had lost her mind. Ahead of her was a wing of a house she'd only ever cleaned. "Command stays mine," she said. "The clinic, the money, my sister, all of it. You put Han on the trail. Fine. But I decide what we do with what he finds. Not you, me." "That's the arrangement," Taesong said. "Resources and a wall. You keep the wheel. Say it plain." He turned all the way around this time, and the tattoo shifted with the movement, the snake's head steady at his jaw. "I give you what you don't have. Room, records, whatever Han can pull. You give me nothing back but the work you already do, and every decision that touches your life, you make. If I ever take one from you, the deal's dead, and you walk with everything you came with." He paused. "Is that plain enough?" "Almost." She met his eyes. "Why the wall?" "Really, men like you don't hand out rooms." "You said that." Something that was almost, not quite, a smile touched one corner of his mouth and left. "I told you. You were on your knees on my kitchen floor being robbed by your own family in front of me, and you didn't cry. You did math." He faced front. "I've built a life around knowing who breaks and who counts. You counted. I want to see how far someone like that goes when nobody's stealing from her." The mansion took them in through a side gate Celestine had never used. Han peeled off toward the study without being told. Mrs. O met them in the hall, saw the duffel, saw her employer, and rearranged her face into professional blankness. "The guest wing," Taesong told her. "The corner room. She stays. She's staff and she's a guest, and you'll treat her as both. Anyone has a problem, send them to me." Mrs. O's eyes moved once to Celestine, recalculating 8 months of a woman on her knees into whatever this was, and then she inclined her head. "Of course." The corner room had a window that faced east. Celestine had cleaned it 11 times. She had never stood in it as someone allowed to close the door. Taesong stopped at the threshold. He didn't come in. "Han will have the clinic's intake process by tonight," he said. "If there's a signature that isn't yours, he'll find the form it's on. You'll see it before I do." "And the money's still gone," she said. "A signature doesn't unspend $41,000. "No, but a forged one changes what the 41,000 is." He looked at her, and there was no comfort in it, only accuracy. "Right now you're a woman whose family took her savings. That's a sad story. Nobody does anything about sad stories." He tapped the doorframe once with 2 knuckles. "A forged signature on a financial document is a crime. Crimes have paper. Paper you can hold." "Why do you keep saying that word?" she said. "Paper." He stopped in the hall, one hand on the frame. "Because it's the only thing that outlives an argument. Your mother has 30 years of stories and a room full of people who'll swear to them. You have a shoebox and the truth. That's not enough, and you know it, or you'd have gone to the police at noon instead of scrubbing my floor." He looked back at her. "Paper doesn't care who your family believes. Get the paper, and the story stops being yours against theirs. It becomes theirs against a form." Celestine held that. She thought of the church, the neighbors, the version of her already spreading through them. She thought of how many times she'd been outvoted in that front room by people who loved her out loud and robbed her in the dark. "Tonight," she said. "You said tonight." Han's already on it. He was gone before she could answer, his steps even down the hall. Celestine set the duffel on the bed. She took out the shoebox and the books and the reading glasses and lined them on the sill where the light was. Then she sat on the edge of the mattress in her uniform, in a house she'd scrubbed for 8 months, and let herself feel, for the first time since noon, that the ground under her had changed. Not saved. She was clear about that. Nobody had saved her. She had walked out of that front room on her own feet, said the words with her own mouth, carried the shoebox out under her own arm. What the man down the hall had given her was a wall and a lock and a lawyer, and a promise she didn't yet believe, that the wheel stayed in her hands. She'd believe it when he tried to take it and she stopped him. Her phone lit on the sill. Not the family, a number she didn't know, a text 3 words long. "This is Han." Then a second one, arriving a breath later, a photograph too small to read, and under it, a single line that made her stand up off the bed. "You need to see what your sister signed." She pressed the photo with her thumb until it filled the screen, and the blur resolved into a form with a header she recognized. The clinic logo, a line for the patient, a line for the responsible party, and under the responsible party, in blue ink, her own name, Celestine Monroe. The loops of the M looped the way hers looped. The tail on the E dropped the way hers dropped. Someone had studied her hand and copied it clean. She had signed 1,000 things at that clinic in her imagination. She had never signed a single one in life. Her thumb went cold on the glass. She typed one word back, "Where?" The 3 dots pulsed. "Study. Now, if you want it. Bring nothing. I have copies." She left the shoebox on the sill and the books beside it and went down the corridor in her socks. The house at night was a different house. The sconces burned low. Her reflection walked with her along the dark glass of the east wall, a woman in gray who had come in as staff and was crossing the floor now as something the house didn't have a word for yet. The study door stood open a hand's width. Han sat at the long table with a laptop and 3 stacked folders squared to the table's edge. Taesung stood at the window in the black turtleneck, the city behind him a grid of small fires. Neither man looked surprised to see her in socks. "Sit," Han said. Not a command, an offer of a chair. She sat. He turned the laptop toward her, and the forged form filled the screen full size, sharper than the photo. She looked at the signature again at full resolution. Up close it was worse. Whoever did it had even matched the pressure, the place where her pen always dug in on the downstroke. "Talia didn't do this," Celestine said. "Talia can't draw a straight line." "No." Han opened the top folder. "She didn't." He laid 3 sheets side by side. The first was the clinic form with her name. The second was a birthday card, years old, signed in the same hand. She recognized it. She had signed a card for an aunt, and it had been passed around and photographed for a family group. The third was a printout, a phone screen, a message thread. "The card is where they got the sample," Han said. "It circulated. Someone traced from it." "Someone?" Her voice stayed level. "Say the name." Han's finger moved down the message thread and stopped. She read the line under his nail. The sender was a contact saved as a string of letters, but Han had annotated it in the margin, in small block capitals. "Andre. Send me the card pic again, the one with her signature. I need it clean," she read aloud. The reply below it was a thumbs up. The message above it, the one that had prompted it, she read too, and her hand found the edge of the table. $400, and I don't ask what for. The room held still. The city burned behind Taesung's shoulders. "He sold you my handwriting," she said, "for $400. "He sold the image," Han said. "The tracing was done by a person Talia paid separately, $40. I have that thread too." He didn't reach for it. He let the 2 numbers sit in the air. 400, 40. The price of her name and the price of the hand that copied it, and together they didn't come to $500. She had carried 41,000 out of a wall, 1 envelope at a time. They had rebuilt her out of a birthday card for 440. Taesong turned from the window. There's more, tell her the rest. Han squared the folders again before he spoke. A small habit, buying the half-second. The signature isn't only on the clinic form. It's on a second document. He drew out the last sheet from the bottom folder, and this one she had never seen the shape of before. A loan agreement. 2 columns, a table of dates, a total at the top in bold. $41,000. Lender, Talia Monroe. Borrower, Celestine Monroe. And at the base, the same blue signature, her name, agreeing to owe her sister the money her sister had stolen from her. She read it twice. The second time she read the dates in the middle column. These payments start in 3 weeks, she said. Yes. The week of my appointment. Yes. She set the sheet down flat and pressed it smooth with 2 fingers, the way she smoothed a made bed. So, if I ever went to a lawyer, if I ever said out loud that she took it. She stopped. She made herself finish it. She has a paper that says I borrowed it, that the $41,000 was a loan, and I've been paying it back. That's the design, Han said. The theft becomes a debt you agreed to. On paper you can't wave away in a family argument. He glanced once at Taesong, and she caught it, and she understood that the sentence she had heard on the threshold hours ago, paper you can hold, had not been a figure of speech. He had known this kind of paper existed before he knew its contents. He had been waiting for it to surface. She sat with the 2 documents under her hands, and the message thread beside them, and felt the floor of the thing shift under her, the way the loose baseboard used to give when she pressed it. This was not a sister grabbing cash in a panic. A panic doesn't forge a repayment schedule. A panic doesn't price a birthday card. Somebody had sat at a table like this one and built a machine, and every part of the machine was designed to keep her quiet, and keep her paying, and keep her exactly where she had always been. When was it signed? She said. The date on it. Han turned the loan sheet and pointed. The date was 6 weeks old. 6 weeks. 2 weeks before Talia had even called her. The paper that said she owed the money was older than the phone call that told her the money was gone. They wrote the ending first, she said. Nobody answered, because it wasn't a question, and because it was true. She stood. She walked the length of the table once, and came back. Taesong watched her move without moving himself, the way he had watched the bird in the courtyard, the way she'd been told he watched a number he'd already decided to check. Han waited with his hands folded. Okay, she said finally. Han, I want to understand what I'm holding, not what I feel about it. What it is. She put her finger on the loan agreement. This is a crime, or this is a mess. Both, Han said. The forgery is the crime. 2 instruments, your name, without your consent. That's fraud, and it's identity theft. And the clinic form makes it wire fraud the moment money moved on it. The mess is the family. Fraud with prosecution and jail on one side, and on the other side, a sister who wanted a baby, and a mother who'll cry in a courtroom, and an old woman jury who'll look at you and wonder why you're sending your family to prison over money. He let that sit. The paper is strong. The story around the paper is a knife that cuts the hand that holds it. You should know both. She heard him. She turned it over. Somewhere down the corridor, a clock she'd dusted 100 times marked the half-hour. And the procedures, she said. At the clinic, the round she paid for with my money, in my name. Where is that? Right now. Han checked the top folder. Begun. The first stage was done 11 days ago. She's in the middle of a cycle. There are embryos. There's a transfer scheduled. He looked up. If you move to freeze this, injunction, fraud complaint, the clinic gets a legal hold. The cycle stops. Everything stops. The money's gone either way, but the process stops cold. And there it was, the shape of the whole thing laid bare on a table at night. She could burn it all down. She had the paper to do it. She could freeze the clinic, file the fraud, put her brother's $400 text and her sister's $40 forger in front of a prosecutor, and she could stop the transfer, and in stopping the transfer, she would stop the one thing in this that wasn't about her at all. Because somewhere at the bottom of it was a woman who had been trying for 3 years too, who couldn't have children with the man she'd married, who wanted the exact thing Celestine wanted, badly enough to become a thief and a forger to get it. That didn't make Talia innocent. It made her the most dangerous kind of guilty, but it was still true. Celestine sat back down. She was quiet long enough that Han began, gently, "You don't have to decide tonight." "I'm not deciding tonight," she said. "I'm deciding now. Give me a pen." Taesong moved for the first time. He crossed to the desk, took a metal pen from the tray, and set it in front of her. He didn't hand it to her. He set it down and stepped back, and the small courtesy of that, not putting anything into her hand, did not escape her. "I'm not stopping the cycle," she said. Han's expression didn't change, but his stillness changed quality. "Tell me your reasoning, so I can build around it. Because if I freeze that clinic, I stop a pregnancy that hasn't done anything to me. The theft is Talia's crime. The child isn't the child's crime." She turned the loan agreement face down so she wouldn't have to look at her own forged name while she said it. "I won't spend the rest of my life as the woman who reached into a womb to take back her money." That's what they'd tell it as. In the church, at the funeral, for 30 years, and they'd be right. "Then the money's gone," Han said, testing it. "You understand you're likely giving up any real chance of recovering the 41,000 if the cycle completes and there's a baby a jury can look at." "No." She picked up the pen. "I'm giving up the fast way. I'm not giving up the money." She pulled a blank sheet from the pad in front of Han and clicked the pen. "Here's what happens. Talia finishes what she started. Nobody touches the clinic. Nobody freezes anything. She gets her cycle," she wrote as she talked. In the hand somebody had traced badly onto 2 documents, the real one, the one that dug in on the downstroke. In exchange, she signs a confession, in her words, dated, witnessed, that she took $41,000 from behind the baseboard in my room, that she forged my name on the clinic form and on this. She tapped the overturned loan agreement. This thing that says I owe her, that Andre sold her the image of my signature for $400, that Mama told her where to look. Han was writing now too, fast. "A confession of debt and restitution," he said. "Not a criminal complaint, a private instrument." "A restitution agreement," Celestine said. "She admits she took it. She agrees she owes it back. On a schedule. A real one, with her name at the bottom this time, and mine nowhere on it." She looked up. "She keeps her cycle. She keeps her chance at the baby. And I keep the truth, in her handwriting, that I can put on any table in this country the day she pretends it went another way." The room was quiet. "You're letting her have the child," Han said slowly, "and taking the story." "I'm taking the story," Celestine said. "The story is the only thing in this house that was ever mine, and they couldn't spend." Taesong had come to stand near the end of the table. She felt him there before she looked. When she did look, his face had the fixed, careful attention of a man watching something he had not predicted and did not intend to interrupt. "You want the same thing she does?" he said. It wasn't a question either. A child. That's what the 41,000 was for. That's what it's still for. She held his eyes. She had never said it out loud to anyone in 8 months in this house, and she said it now, plainly, because there was no longer any reason on earth to hide it from the 2 men who already held her forged name on their table. "Yes," she said. "I'm 31. The window's closing. I saved for 3 years so that once, one time, The answer to whether I got to be a mother would be mine, and not the bank's, and not this family's. That's what she took, not the money. The one choice I paid for, so nobody could vote on it. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Taesong said, low, I know what it is to want the one thing you weren't allowed to choose. He didn't explain it. He didn't offer the story behind it. But something in the flat of his voice told her it was the truest sentence he had said to her, and that it had cost him more than the whole afternoon of driving and waiting and standing against walls. She looked back down at the confession she was drafting so she wouldn't have to decide what to do with that. Han, she said, can you make this hold? The restitution agreement. Airtight, so that if she signs it and later cries forgery herself, it doesn't come apart? I can make it hold. He was already pulling a fresh document up on the laptop. I'll need her to sign in front of a notary. I'll need it recorded. I'll need her to write 2 lines in her own hand, not just sign, so a court can't say she didn't understand it. He glanced at her. She won't want to. She'll want the cycle more than she'll want to hide it, Celestine said. That's the whole trade. She keeps the baby. She loses the lie. She set the pen down parallel to the edge of the table, the way Hans squared his folders, and noticed she was doing it, and let herself do it. Everybody in that house bet I'd stay quiet to keep the family. They wrote the ending 6 weeks ago betting on it. She stood. I'm going to sign a different ending, and she's going to sign it with me. Taesong watched her rise. And the clinic form? The wire fraud? That doesn't disappear because you're being merciful. No, Celestine said. It doesn't disappear. Han keeps it. She looked at the folders, squared and stacked, and hers now in a way the shoebox of decoy money had never quite been. The confession is what I show the family. The fraud is what I keep in a drawer for the day the confession isn't enough. She almost smiled and didn't. I lived my whole life with one box they thought was all my money and another wall they didn't know about. I know how to keep 2 of something. Han printed a page. The machine hummed and fed it out warm, and he laid it in front of her, the first clean draft of the restitution agreement, her real name typed where a real name goes, no signature on it yet at all. She read it top to bottom. Then she picked up the metal pen a second time, and at the bottom of the page, on the line marked for the party being repaid, in the hand that dug in on the downstroke, she signed her own name onto a document for the first time in this entire story. A document she had written herself, that gave nothing away, that took nothing from anyone's body, and that turned a stolen wall of cash into a debt her sister would carry on paper for as long as Celestine chose to hold it. She capped the pen and set it down. Send it to her tomorrow, she said, with 1 line from me, nothing else. What line? Han said, pen ready. Celestine looked at the overturned loan agreement, at her forged name lying face down against the wood, and then at the 2 men who had watched her build the answer instead of building it for her. Tell her, she said, you can keep the baby. You're going to give me back the truth. Sign or I stop being merciful. Behind her, at the dark window, Taesong made a sound that in another man might have been the beginning of a laugh. Han was already typing, and somewhere 3 weeks out, a clock she couldn't hear had started counting toward an appointment that was no longer only hers, and toward a signature that wasn't going to be forged this time, because she was going to stand in the room and watch her sister write it. The knock came at 9 in the morning, and Celestine already had her boots on. She'd slept 4 hours in the corner room, the shoebox still in her bag, the anatomy book open to a page she hadn't read. Mrs. O stood at the door with a phone held flat on her palm, screen up, like it might bite. A man is calling the house line, Mrs. O said. He asks for you. He says his name is Dominic. Celestine took the phone. She didn't put it to her ear right away. She looked at the door Mrs. O had just come through, the hallway behind it, the light coming down the stairs. Then she answered, Dominic. His breathing was wrong. Fast, then held, then fast again. Is it true? 4 words, no lift at the end. He already knew. Is what true? Don't. A sound came through the line. A car door, wind. He was outside somewhere. I found the paperwork. The clinic sent a confirmation to the house. Talia's been telling me the money came from her savings, from a bonus at the salon. He laughed once, and it broke in the middle. She doesn't have a bonus. She doesn't have savings. I did the math at 4 this morning. Celestine, sitting on the bathroom floor. Celestine sat down on the edge of the bed. How much did you find? 41. The number landed in his mouth like a stone. $41,000. In a clinic file with a name on it that isn't hers. He stopped. It's yours, isn't it? The money's yours. Yes. For a long moment, there was only the wind. Then Dominic said something she hadn't expected. He said, I'm not going home. She stood back up. Dominic, I've been married to her for 6 years. His voice went flat, the flat of a man reading his own eviction notice. 6 years I thought we were poor, because life is hard, not because my wife was building a baby out of her sister's stolen years. He exhaled. There are embryos. Do you understand what she did? She made me a father with money she took from you, and she was going to let me hold that baby and never know whose it really was. Celestine walked to the window, the east window she'd cleaned 11 times as staff and now stood at as something else. Down in the courtyard, Han crossed the gravel with his leather case. She watched him and spoke into the phone. What are you going to do? I already did it. A rustle, paper against the phone. I photographed everything before I left. The confirmation. The deposit slip she hid in the coffee tin. I sent it to my brother, my cousin, 2 people from the church who kept telling me to be patient with her. His breath shook. I'm done being the last one to find out. If she gets to keep the baby, she can keep it alone. I'm not covering this. I'm not covering any of them. There it was. The first wall of the machine cracking, and it cracked from the inside, from the one person the family had counted on to stay stupid and grateful. Dominic. She kept her voice level. Listen to me. Don't destroy the embryos. Don't do anything to the clinic. That's not yours to burn, and it's not mine either. You think I'd... He stopped. No, that's not who I am. A car engine turned over on his end. I just needed you to know I know, and that I'm sorry. 6 years I ate at your mother's table, and I never once asked why you looked so tired. The engine steadied. I've got to go. I'm going to my brother's. Don't call this number. She has the phone records. The line went dead. Celestine held the phone against her sternum. She didn't cry. She'd stopped expecting herself to. But something under her ribs had shifted. Some weight that had been sitting on one side, now sliding to the other, because Dominic's 4 a.m. bathroom floor was hers too, was the exact place she'd been living for 3 years, and she had never once thought of him as a person who could end up on it. She went down to the study. Han was setting his case on the long table when she came in. Taesong stood by the window in the black turtleneck, a cup of tea untouched at his elbow, and she wondered if anyone in this house ever actually drank the things they poured. Dominic knows, she said. He found the clinic confirmation. He's leaving her. He sent proof to their family before he left. Han's hand stopped on the zipper of his case. He looked at Taesong, then at her. That changes the shape of the confession, he said slowly. If the husband is already circulating documents, Talia's leverage collapses. She can't threaten exposure. She's already exposed. It changes more than that. Celestine pulled out a chair but didn't sit. It means the story's out of my hands. Everybody's going to have a version by tonight. She pressed 2 fingers to the table. I need to know exactly who did what before somebody rewrites it. I need the whole thing, Han. Not the parts that make a clean case. All of it. Han was quiet a moment, then he opened the middle folder, the one he'd kept closed the night before, and turned it around so it faced her. You asked me to trace the money, he said. I traced the people too. It's cleaner to understand a theft when you know how many hands carried it. Celestine looked down. There was a timeline. Dates in Han's small hand. Arrows, 3 columns. Start with the morning of the call, she said. The morning of the call is not the beginning. Han tapped the top of the page. The compartment behind the baseboard was found 6 weeks ago. You know this. What you don't know is the sequence. His pen moved down the first column. Your mother saw you go behind the dresser. She did not tell Talia and stop there. 11 days before the phone call, your mother went into your room while you were at the mansion, and she opened the compartment herself. She counted it. She saw the envelope. The floor did something under Celestine. She put her hand flat on the table to stop it. 11 days, she said. There is a text. Han turned his laptop. From your mother to Talia. It's still there. All of it. The fat envelope says twins. Time-stamped. 11 days before the call. He let her read it. She saw the empty compartment coming before it was empty. She watched you carry that envelope in your face for 11 days, and she said nothing to you and everything to your sister. Celestine read the text twice. The word twins in her mother's spelling, the way Gloria always dropped the apostrophe. It was her. It wasn't a forgery. Nothing about this one was faked. Keep going, she said. Her voice came out steady, and she didn't know how. Andre, Han moved to the second column. You accused him of transporting the money. He did, but not the way you framed it in the house. He turned a printed message thread, a different one from the $400 signature sale. The cash didn't go straight to the clinic. Talia was afraid to move that much herself. Andre carried it. 2 trips. He took the rent pile and the book pile in a gym bag to a check cashing place, converted part of it, then drove the deposit to the clinic in person because Talia didn't want a wire in her own name yet. Han's pen underlined a figure. He was paid $300 for the driving, separate from the $400 for the signature image, $700 total, from his own sister, to move his other sister's stolen years across town. Celestine sat down now. Her knees made the decision for her. And the family, she said. The cousins. The church people Dominic just mailed. Han didn't soften it. They knew. Not all of them, and not all of it. But your aunt on your mother's side knew there was family money being sorted out. 2 cousins were told you'd come into some money, and were being selfish with it. The framing was set before you ever said a word. He closed the folder halfway. When you left the house yesterday and said you were going, 3 separate people in that family received a phone call within the hour, telling them you'd run off with a Korean man and abandoned your sick mother. The story about you was already written and mailed before you finished packing. The room was very quiet. Taesong hadn't moved from the window. He was watching her the way he'd watched her in the kitchen the first day, not with pity, with attention, like she was a number he was still deciding whether to check. Celestine looked at the timeline, at the arrows, at the way every arrow pointed at her, and away from every hand that had held the money. It wasn't Talia, she said. Not a question. It was Talia's hands, Han said. It was your mother's eyes. Your brother's car, your family's mouth. He set the pen down. 1 person steals from you, and you have a thief. This is not a thief. This is a household that decided, together, that your future was a resource they were entitled to spend. She'd known. Some floor of her had known since the phone rang in that kitchen, since her mother said blessing and meant asset. But knowing it in the body and seeing it in a column with dates was not the same thing, and the second one took something out of her that the first one never had. She stood up. She walked to the window, past Taesong, and looked down at the courtyard where the bird had landed near him on the first day. "Cut them," she said. "Quiet. All of it. Aunt Rose, the cousins, the church, my mother, Andre." She turned. "I don't want a single line open. Not one number in my phone. Not one name I answer to. If it has that family's blood in it, it's gone by tonight." "Understood," Han said. "I mean the whole thing." She came back to the table. "People are going to say I abandoned a sick woman. Let them. I have watched that sick woman count my money with her own hands 11 days before she let me walk around thinking I still had it." Her hand closed on the back of the chair. "I'm not the box anymore. I'm not even in the house where the box lives." Taesong spoke for the first time since she'd come in. "Then you'll stay here," he said. "The corner room becomes yours. Not staff, not guest. Yours. Han draws the papers today. You keep the room, the tuition, the protection, and my name over all of it while you rebuild." He said it plainly, the way he said everything, like it was already settled and he was only informing her. And that was the exact moment Celestine felt the floor tilt again, only this time it wasn't grief, it was recognition. She looked at him a long time. "No," she said. Han's pen stopped. Taesong's expression didn't change, but something in the room did, the way a house changes when a door that's always been open is closed. "Say that again," Taesong said. "Not angry, careful." "No." Celestine stepped back from the table so she was standing on her own patch of floor. "You just did the thing you told me you'd never do. You decided. You'll stay here. The room becomes yours. You wrote my next 6 months in 4 sentences, and you didn't put a single question mark in any of them. You offered me my mother's kitchen with better furniture." Her voice didn't rise. It went down, went to the bottom, where the true things were. "For 31 years, there has been a man or a woman in my life who feeds me and shelters me, and in exchange owns the wheel. My mother called it family. You call it protection. From where I'm standing, sir, they rhyme." The word "sir" landed on purpose, the staff word, the reminder of what she had been in this house for 8 months, and she watched it land. Taesong was silent. Han looked at his own hands. "I traded a house where I was the box," Celestine said, "and I am not going to walk straight into a house where I'm the guest who owes her whole new life to the man who caught her on a bad day. Even if you never send the bill, especially if you never send the bill. Because a debt you never name is the one that owns you longest." She picked up her bag from the chair, the shoebox heavy inside it. "You said it yourself. Gratitude turns into dependency and makes people decide things to please you instead of deciding what's right. You were talking about your rule. You were describing my whole life." "Where will you go?" Taesong's voice was low. It was, she realized, the first time she'd heard him ask a question he didn't already have the answer to. "I have $59,700 in a shoebox that my family thought was everything I owned." She lifted the bag onto her shoulder. "They left me the decoy. They thought they were being cruel. A breath. They funded my apartment. Nobody moved to stop her. That was the difference," she noted, some cold, clear part of her filing it away. In her mother's house, the door got blocked. Here, the door stayed where it was and let her decide whether to walk through it. "The restitution agreement," Han said quietly. "Talia, the signature, all of that continues?" "All of it continues." She was already at the door. "You keep the clinic form in the drawer. You send Talia the line I gave you. I'll sign what needs my name from wherever I'm standing, and I'll stand in the room when she writes hers, because I'm not letting anyone forge my hand a second time." She looked back at Taesong. "This part doesn't change. I want the truth on paper, and I want the money back through a court and not through a favor. I just won't do it from a room you gave me. Taesong crossed to the table. He didn't reach for her, didn't raise his voice, didn't tell her she was being foolish about a city that would eat a woman alone with a shoebox. He picked up the metal pen he'd set in front of her the night before, the one he'd placed instead of handing, and he held it out. Not toward her hand, onto the table. I'm between them. Then take the pen, he said. It's yours. You'll need it for the papers. It was never mine to give you, and never mine to keep. She looked at the pen a long moment. Then she picked it up and put it in the bag with the shoebox and the anatomy book. When I win this, she said, and I'm going to win it standing on my own 2 feet in my own rented room, then we can talk about what a man and a woman look like when neither one of them owns the wheel. She opened the door. Not before. I've never once found out who I am when nobody's holding the money. I'm 31. I'd like to meet her. She went down the stairs with the bag on her shoulder. Mrs. O was in the hall and didn't ask where. Rosa was polishing the banister and looked up, and Celestine said only, "Thank you for the water that first day," and Rosa didn't understand it, but nodded like she did. At the side gate, she stopped. She took out her phone. She opened the contact list, the whole tangle of it, Mama and Talia and Andre and Aunt Rose and the church group and the cousins, 31 years of numbers that all led to the same kitchen. She selected them. Her thumb hovered. Behind her, 3 floors up, a man she'd told no was standing at a window watching a woman walk out of his house with a shoebox and a stolen life to rebuild, and she didn't turn around to check, because checking would have been the old thing, the looking back for permission thing. She deleted them, all of them. The phone asked if she was sure, and she pressed yes, without reading it twice. Then she walked through the side gate onto the street, with $59,700, 1 metal pen, no family, no protector, and, for the first time since she was a girl, counting other people's emergencies, no one at all holding the wheel but her. The street was long and empty in both directions, and she did not know which way the nearest apartment listing was, and there was no one left in the world to call and ask. She turned left, because left had more streetlights, and by the 3rd block, she had a listing pulled up on the phone. The family no longer had a number to reach. A studio over a laundromat. $900 a month, first and last up front. She read the address twice, put the phone in the inside pocket with the zipper, and kept walking toward the bus that would take her there. The shoebox pressed against her ribs through the bag. $59,700 felt heavier than it had inside the mansion, where someone else's roof had held part of the weight. The landlord met her at noon. He counted the cash slow, wet his thumb between bills, asked no questions about where a housekeeper got 2 months in 20s. She signed her own name on the lease, her real name, the loops of the M, the tail of the E, the pressure on the downstroke, hers, on paper, given by her own hand for the first time in weeks. She held the key in her fist the whole ride back to collect nothing, because there was nothing to collect. Everything she owned was already in the bag. Han called that evening. Not Taesong. Han. Talia signed, he said. Celestine set the anatomy book down on the bare floor of the studio. All of it. In her hand. Notarized this afternoon. 2 witnesses. A pause. The sound of pages. She wrote the lines you asked for, that she took $41,000 from behind the baseboard, that she forged your name on the clinic form and on the loan agreement, that Andre sold the image of your signature for $400, that your mother told her where to look. Read me the last one again. That your mother told her where to look. She closed her eyes. Not relief, something colder and more useful than relief. There's more, Han said. When she signed, she wanted the pressure off, so she gave me her phone to prove she'd told the whole truth. She shouldn't have. What was on it? A group thread. 6 weeks old. Your mother, Talia, Andre, your Aunt Rose, started 2 days before the loan agreement was dated. Celestine sat down on the floor. Send it. The photos came in one at a time. She read them in the light of a phone in an empty room, and the story that had lived in her body as shame rearranged itself, message by message, into something with authors. It was not a woman who envied her sister and grabbed money in a bad hour. It was a plan. Gloria had opened the thread. She's got $60,000 behind that wall, and she's going to spend it on a baby she can't afford alone. That money keeps this family standing. Talia, an hour later. If it's a loan on paper, she can't call it stealing. Andre. I can get the signature off the birthday card. $400 and I'm out of it. Aunt Rose the next morning. Whatever you do, keep it quiet until it's done. Once the money's in the clinic, she can't undo it. They had not stolen from her in a moment of weakness. They had sat down together and decided that Celestine, still, contained, saving quietly in the dark, was worth more to them trapped than free. The envelope marked fertilization. Twins was never the target. The target was the version of her that stayed. The money was just the wall of the cage. She read the last message twice. It was from her mother, dated the day after the phone call, the day Celestine had knelt on a stranger's kitchen floor and heard her sister laugh. She'll come around. She always does. She's got nowhere else to go. Celestine put the phone face down on the floor. She did not cry. She had learned in a marble kitchen that she was the kind of woman who does the math instead. She did the math now. 4 people, 1 card, $400 for the image, $40 for the tracer, $300 for the transport. Less than $1,000 to build a machine that would have cost her the only child she would ever be able to have. They had priced her whole future and found it cheaper than a used transmission. For a long time, she sat with her back against the cold wall of a room she paid for herself. She turned each message over the way she used to turn bills before a shift, sorting them into what they were. The thread was not 4 voices. It was one decision wearing 4 faces. Her mother had opened it, and her mother had closed it, and everything between was the family agreeing, calmly, in typed sentences, that the price of keeping her was worth a baby that would never be born. She understood then what had been done to the shape of her own story. For weeks, she had carried it as a private wound. My sister took my money. A thing to be ashamed of. A thing you don't air. But the thread was not a wound. It was evidence. A wound belongs to the person who bleeds. Evidence belongs to whoever holds the paper, and she was holding it now, in her own room, and it named every one of them by their own typing. Han, she said, still on the floor. How many people are on that thread? 4. Your mother, Talia, Andre, your Aunt Rose. And Talia handed it to you herself, to prove she'd told the whole truth. A dry pause. She proved more than she meant to. Good, Celestine said. Then it wasn't jealousy. Jealousy is one person. This took a meeting, the clinic form, and the wire fraud, the one you put in the drawer. It's in the drawer. Leave it there. I don't need the criminal charge. She looked at the messages, glowing face down through the phone's thin body. I have something better now. I have all of them, in their own words, deciding it together. The confession makes Talia owe me. The thread makes the rest of them liars in front of anyone I choose to show. You understand what you're holding, Han said. It was not a question. I'm holding the ending they wrote first, she said. Except now, it's got their names on it instead of mine. The last offensive came the way she knew it would. Not through the front, but through the phones of everyone she'd ever known. Aunt Rose posted first, on the church group, a long paragraph about a niece who'd abandoned her sick mother to run off with a foreign man's money. 2 cousins shared it. By the weekend, the story had a shape in 3 congregations: Celestine Monroe, the ungrateful one, the runaway, the girl who'd forgotten where she came from. Gloria did not have to lift a finger. The mouth of the family did the work, the same mouth that had been warming up against her for 6 weeks before she ever left. The old Celestine would have gone quiet, would have let the story win because fighting it meant airing the family, and airing the family was the one sin they'd taught her never to commit. She did not go quiet, but she did not go loud either. She went to a lawyer, a real one, hers, retained with her own money, not Taesong's. Han gave her the name and nothing else. She sat across a desk with the notarized confession, the forged loan agreement, the clinic form, and the group thread on a printed page, and she filed for restitution of $41,000 against Talia Monroe, borrower of record, on a contract Talia herself had signed into existence. The genius of it landed on Talia slowly. The forged loan agreement, the paper meant to turn theft into a debt Celestine owed, was real now, notarized, admitted. It named Talia as lender and Celestine as borrower of $41,000. But the signed confession established that the direction was a lie. So the court read the 2 papers together, the only way they could be read. Talia had documented, in her own hand, that she'd taken $41,000 that belonged to her sister. The trap she'd built to hold Celestine was the exact instrument that now held her. Dominic testified by affidavit. He had already left, already told his family, and he did not flinch from telling the court where the deposit had gone and whose money had funded it. He did not ask for anything back. He only wanted his name off it. Talia had no money to give, but Talia had a settlement from a car accident 2 years back, sitting untouched. The court ordered restitution against it, $41,000, plus filing costs, garnished from the one asset she'd hidden even from Dominic. Celestine got her money back, not from a man, not from a rescue, from a judge reading her sister's own handwriting. Gloria tried to reach her once, through a cousin. A message passed hand to hand because there was no number left to dial. The word came that Mama was asking after her, that Mama's blood pressure was up, that a good daughter would call. Celestine read the relayed message on the studio floor and set it aside without answering. She had spent 31 years being summoned by the word emergency. She knew now what the word had always meant in that house. It meant, open the box. She was not a box anymore. The church story died the way stories die when the paper contradicts them. A cousin who'd shared Aunt Rose's paragraph saw the confession, saw the thread, and quietly took the post down. One by one, the congregations lost interest in a runaway who turned out to have receipts. Gloria could move a mouth, but she could not move a notary's stamp. For the first time, the family's favorite weapon, the story told fast, before the truth could dress, failed against a woman who had learned to keep the paper you can hold. She kept the studio over the laundromat. She kept the anatomy book on the windowsill next to the reading glasses. She sat the spring exam she had been walking toward for 3 years, in a sweater the color of caramel, and she passed. 2 years of nursing ahead of her, then the license. The plan she'd built one course at a time on a 40-minute bus, still hers, still moving, now funded by money that had come home. And the appointment, the one saved in her phone as dentist, the one that had been 3 weeks out on the worst morning of her life, she kept it. The clinic honored the original consultation. The window the doctor had told her was closing had not closed yet. It was hers to walk through, on a date she chose, with money she'd earned back, in a name that was only her own. Taesong came to the studio once. He had never been to a place like it. A single room over a laundromat, the whole thing smaller than the guest wing's bathroom. He stood in the doorway the way he always stood in doorways, not entering until the room was offered. "Come in," she said. She had earned the right to offer it, and she liked the sound of it in her own mouth. He came in. He looked at the anatomy book, the exam result taped to the wall, the shoebox, empty now, kept for reasons she didn't explain. He set an envelope on the small table. "Not cash, paper." "Your employment," he said. "It's ended. Effective today." She looked at the envelope. "You're firing me." "I'm closing it." He didn't sit. "From the first day I told you no debt. You never let it become one. You took a room and gave nothing away for it. And when I decided something that was yours to decide, you called it what it was and you left." He almost smiled. She had never seen it reach his eyes before. "You were the only person in 8 months who made me keep my own rule." "So what's the paper?" "The end of you working for me. I won't stand across a wage from you for what I'm about to say." She waited. She had learned to make men build the whole sentence themselves. "You wanted a child," he said. "You saved 3 years so the choice would be yours, and no banks, and no families. I know what it is to want the one thing you weren't allowed to choose." He'd said the second half of it once before, in a study, low. He said the first half now, and it cost him something visible. "I'm not offering you a room. I'm not offering you protection. You prove to a court you don't need either." "Then what?" "A partner." He held her eyes. "If you have the child, I'd be its father. Not because you owe me, and not because you couldn't do it alone. The whole point is that you can. An equal thing. 2 people who each already walked out of a house that tried to own them, choosing to build one that doesn't." She let the silence hold. Outside, a dryer thudded through the floor. She thought about her mother's voice. "She's got nowhere else to go." And about the street that had been empty in both directions the night she'd deleted them all. And about how she had found the bus stop anyway, and the apartment, and the courtroom, and the exam, without one hand from anyone. "Say the rule again," she said. "The one about the wheel. It stays yours." He didn't look away. "It was never mine to give or to hold. If you say yes, and one day I decide something that's yours, you walk out with everything you brought, same as before. That doesn't change because we share a name, or a table, or a child." She picked up the envelope. She didn't open it. She held it, the way she'd once held a thinner envelope in the dark behind a baseboard, except this one she'd been handed in the light, by someone who'd waited to be let in. "Yes," she said, "as equals. My money stays mine. My appointment stays mine. The child, if there's a child, is a choice I make and you join. Not the other way. That's the only way I'd have it." She set the envelope down and looked at him. The quiet one. The man who had stood against a wall in her mother's house and said nothing, because saying nothing was the only way to leave the deciding to her. "You know why I almost didn't," she said. "Why I told you no in the study and walked out with the shoebox. Because you'd already spent your whole life being the box people opened when they were short," he said. "You weren't going to become mine. And now?" He was quiet a moment. "Now you've got your own money, your own key, your own name back on your own paper. There's nothing left for me to take. That's the only condition under which I'd ever have asked." She thought of everyone who had come to save her and meant. "Keep." Gloria at the bedroom door. "Men like that don't give rooms for free." Talia's ultimatum dressed as generosity. The whole machine of them, priced at under $1,000, built to convince her she had nowhere to go. They had all been wrong about the same thing. They thought a woman with nothing would take any hand. They never understood that she'd rather cross an empty street alone than be held again. "You didn't need saving," Taesong said, and it was almost to himself, the way a man says the truest thing he knows. "You needed someone who'd never take the choice from you." She held out her hand. "Not to be helped up. to be met. He took it as equals. The wheel stayed hers. If you want to watch all the stories without any ads and also get access to bonus scenes, extended epilogues, and exclusive spicy chapters, head over to our Patreon. Scan the QR code on the screen. The link is in the description or in the pinned comment. See you there. If this story moved you, stop for a moment and reflect. Have you ever been called the strong one, only so the people you love could keep taking from you? Have you ever hidden something behind a wall because the ones closest to you were the ones you trusted least? And when the truth finally came out, did you choose revenge or did you choose your own freedom? Tell us your experiences and feelings in the comments. We read them all. And if you believe in stories about dignity, family betrayal, and hard-won independence, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a part of our community and help the channel.